Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston Sports Podcast, part of the National Believe Network. And the guy you see on the other side of the screen joining me is James Christopher to talk a little bit of Astros at the All-Star break. He is host of Ballpark Nation. It's great to have him back on the show. And man, James, a tough way to go into the break, and it might be time to start treating Garcia like Barry Bonds and just intentionally walking him from here on out.
Well, it's funny because it is it's the second best record we've had. I'm a season ticket holder, so I use we if that upsets people. I'm sorry. But anyway, it's the second best record we've had since 2020 at the All-Star break, but it certainly doesn't feel that way today, does it?
No, I mean, it's a rough way to end things, but I felt like they had to come down to earth, and some of the guys they're rolling out there. I mean, when over half of your big league roster is on the injured list, I mean, it's just like, I haven't seen this in all my Astros history, James. I've never seen it like this.
No, usually you get one or two guys, and we have had a bunch of guys playing over their skis, and then some of those guys sort of had to have their replacements called up. And so, yeah, it's been a rough week, and I don't think you should discount the week. Like, I don't think you should throw it out, but they're either the team that steamrolled through Philly, LA, and Chicago, or they're this team. I think the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, and I think that somewhere in the middle is more than good enough to win the AL West.
It's unfortunate that Hunter Brown is basically no good as a pitcher anymore, and that sucks. And RIP Hunter Brown. But no, I want to talk about some kind of couple of storylines that are kind of fun that have emerged. Dana Brown's initial first-round pick as an Astros GM made it to the bigs. How did you feel about Bryce Matthews getting the call right now? And what's your impression of the Atascocita second baseman after his first couple of games?
Perplexing was what I felt about the call. As you mentioned, I do Ballpark Nation, which means I'm in minor league ballparks all the time, which means I've seen him play a bunch, and I've seen him play all over. And I know you've seen the story on X about his home road splits, but it's a real thing in AAA, particularly in the PCL, where you have a lot of ballparks that play like Coors Field, and people don't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear it about Loper Fido last year, and it was kind of the same thing. They don't want to hear about Bryce Matthews. So I had sort of convinced myself that he would have been trade bait at the deadline. I was therefore shocked that they brought him up because I didn't really see him as somebody that was exponentially better than anybody that was on the roster right then. Like, we're beat up. There's no way around it. It wasn't Cam Smith that was demanding to be played in spring training. And so I was a little confused and a little, I think, disappointed because clearly I'm not sure he was ready for the moment. And all you have to do is look at the fact that I believe he struck out 5 of his first 6 times, and 4 of those were looking. Maybe he got in his head that he's a free swinger and he doesn't have good zone control. So it's almost like he went up there going, I'm not going to strike out crazy swinging at balls outside the box. And so I'm never going to be the guy that's going to doom a player after 6 or 8 ABs or 18 or whatever. Part of the perplexing goes back, Robert, to, is this the team you want to give a long runway to a rookie who's going to need time to get used to the bigs? Or you had a mix of stuff that seemed to be working. Why not roll with that until you start to get reinforcements back, either via health or the trade deadline? So to me, it was a head scratcher by a GM that doesn't make a lot of head scratching decisions. Most of his decisions have worked out pretty well for the team. This was just one that kind of left me fuzzy a little bit.
Yeah, but you can't be surprised that Dana Brown would sort of fall in love with your first round draft pick as a general manager. And you can't be surprised that he would fall in love with the guy that's, an excellent athlete, and he likes to push guys through the organization. He likes to push what they do.
He does, and for the most part, it does work out. I think this just one, it felt like it was almost a decision made by Twitter managers and not the actual general manager. And I think I just would have kept him in AAA. I mean, did he play today? Like, I don't think he did. So it seems like if he's not going to get ABs, then he needs to be down getting ABs. Josh
Hader's finally looking human to a degree in the last few games. He blew his first save Saturday, has given up 3 home runs in his last 4 outings. Hader had his most appearances in a season last year, if people didn't notice, and he's on pace for his second most this year. Is that a concern at all, how much they're using him?
The home runs, not so much. If you look at particularly the 2 home runs that matter, which was the one yesterday and then the one against Cleveland, those were the front 2 rows of the Crawford box specials. The Crawford box giveth, the Crawford boxes taketh away. I am a little concerned. I don't know that we're seeing the effects of how often he pitches, but again, I think Joe Espada is doing a really good job as the manager. The second best team in the AL with this roster, with Yordan having been out for 2 months. So when I question the manager, I'm not a hate the manager guy, but I don't understand the number of times we've seen Hader come in with a 4-run lead. If you don't trust your bullpen enough to be able to close out a 4 or 5-run lead, then have him ready in the bullpen to come in if the lead does get shorter. But there's been plenty of times when we've seen Abreu and Hader come in with a 4-run lead. And I do think you could see that at the end of the year, it start to take its toll. And even with everybody healthy, Robert, even if Yordan's back and Pena comes back, and I'm actually really dubious as to whether Meyers is going to come back, but that's a whole other thing. This was still going to be a team that was going to be pitching and defense first. And so I don't understand the need to push him as hard as we pushed him at the beginning of this season. Now, again, it's paid off. They're 55 and 40, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I don't think that you can look at his 2 performances as a result of how much he's pitched so far now. I think you can look at, like Hunter Brown today, I think he had an expecting batting average of 2 of those home runs that were like 185. Like sometimes baseball happens and you have to be able to separate that. But if you ask me this question in September about Hader, I might have a different answer as far as how concerned I am about how much he's pitching.
Yeah, a couple of things I'll just say on the Hader usage. One of them is 1-run leads. They've had a lot of 1-run games. Obviously, they won a lot of 1-run games, so that's part of it. Part of it's just like situational. But one thing I hate, James, is you talk about the 4-run leads. I just don't like pitching your ace reliever a second inning when you don't have a lead. I don't like the extra inning. Okay, we're going to pitch this guy a second inning when there's no guarantee. The chances of you winning the game are, still 50-50 at best.
Especially if you're the home team, because you have that unique advantage. The home team really is favored, at least it should be statistically, with the extra inning rules of already having the guy at second base. Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know that now is the time to do that stuff. And, I'm sure Josh wants to be out there. I'm sure, but that's not always what should matter. But I don't think it's the reason the Astros lost that game to the Guardians on, I guess it was Wednesday. That was just an unusually bad outing for both Hunter Brown and I think for Josh Hader. But I do think it's something you have to watch down the road. And I would hope that as this lead maybe gets a little bit bigger and gets extended, then maybe you will start to see less and less of that. And to be fair, too, you did see they gave him 2 games off in the Cubs series. I think it was right before they came to LA or the Colorado series. So maybe they are going to start dialing some of that back.
Do you actually want to see him pitch in the All-Star game? I don't.
No. The All-Star game too. I think I'm probably older than you are, but the All-Star game used to be a different deal. And now I just wish they would actually just name who the All-Stars are, have a home run derby, and then give them a week off and let's go play some baseball. The whole idea of having a game, nobody in a pennant race wants to see their players play.
Yeah.
Nothing good can happen.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk more about the All-Star game in a bit, but let's hit on Chas McCormick, because Chas is on a rehab assignment right now. And I know Taylor Trammell and Cooper Hummel aren't exactly crushing baseballs, but have we seen the last of McCormick? Because those two give us about a left-handed options, and he's $3.4 million that you can play with when you're looking at trades.
Yeah, I think that you'll find somebody that can take Chas McCormick. I do think, particularly now that he has hit better this year than last year before he got injured. But it seemed like they were purely platooning him, and I don't know that you could give up that salary flexibility for somebody you only play half the time. I wouldn't be surprised to see him as some kind of thrown in for some kind of deal, because I do believe that Dana Brown and Jim Crane are going to make some deals. We'll always have 2022 Chas, and I've got a brick at Minute Maid Park, which is by the little brick honoring him falling down and everything else like this, and so we'll always have that moment. But I do think, you're probably seen the last of Chas McCormick as an Astro at Dyken Park.
It's also worth pointing out, though, that McCormick's career OPS versus righties is 690, which is higher than Hummel and Trammell are hitting against everybody right now. And if you look at the last 2 seasons, Chas's OPS is in the 500s versus righties. So yeah, he has struggled the last couple of years. It's just weird, James, with Chas, because this is a guy that was trending up his first couple of years in the major leagues. 3 years, it was like a lot of reticence, or I don't know, the managers weren't big on Chas McCormick, but at the same time, you saw the numbers and they just kept going up and he kept performing in big situations. His career has kind of taken a strange dive.
Yeah, you can talk about 2022, but his good offensive year was actually 23, and he was one of the team leaders in offense. And baseball be like that sometimes. And I don't know what happened to him last year, and then this year, obviously the injury, but the Astros don't have the flexibility, much like giving Bryce Matthews a long runway. They don't have the flexibility to hope that he'll somehow get that back. I think they're going to have to be really aggressive as trying to find some offense somewhere.
Do the Astros need a starting pitcher at the deadline? Hold that thought. We're going to hit it in a second. But hey, what do you want the Astros to do at the trade deadline? Let me know in the YouTube comments. And in case you missed it, Saturday, I broke down Reed Shepherd's incredible start to the Summer League. I got a couple of Rockets guests this week. So plenty to subscribe on YouTube for. Plenty of stuff. Subscribe there. You'll find all that. You'll also want to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or follow whatever you do on your podcast apps. And don't forget to give a quick thumbs up too. All right, James, do the Astros need a starting pitcher at the deadline, considering number one, Arrighetti's coming back. Number two, Brandon Walters, actually not bad. He's got a 3.98 ERA and a 101 whip. And number three, Garcia and Javier have actually made rehab starts. I'm trying not to get too excited.
Yeah, I try not to get too excited about that either, because the Astros medical staff, their arm could fall off tomorrow. I mean, I don't think it's your top priority. I think if you can kick the tires on a starting pitcher, I don't think you can ever have enough arms. We talked a little bit about it with Hader being maybe being overused, or the pressure that's going to be going on Valdez and Hunter Brown. I think that if you can get another starting pitcher, also talking about getting Javier back and Garcia back and Arrighetti, what you've done is also really strengthened that bullpen. The bullpen is really a strength of the team, but you know as well as I do, 8 and 9 are locked down, but who's your seventh inning guy? Is it Sousa? I don't know that Joe Espada feels fully comfortable yet. So need is a weird word when you're talking about having Hunter Brown and Valdez, who you would put as a starter in any rotation for the playoffs. I don't think no team would turn that down. However, I do believe you will still see them kick the tires on someone, as well as another bat for sure.
One of the things you have to think about with the pitching staff is you got somebody like Hunter Brown right now that's, had to pitch a lot of innings. You're starting to see the wear and tear. We joked about him earlier, but that's part of the equation. So having a 6-man or maybe having him skip a start could help. In an ideal situation, that's what you want to do. There's never ideal situations in Major League Baseball anymore. The other factor is going to be, you've got Fromber that also might need some of that rest, even though he's a veteran. But you can go to a 6-man, and you probably should go to a 6-man rotation at this point. And so these guys coming back, let's hope that you can get up to 6 guys, that Garcia and Javier and Arrighetti, at least 1 or 2 of those guys come back. So you do have that six guys.
And with Arrighetti, you feel pretty confident you can work to get him stretched out right away, because his injury wasn't really, it was a fluke thing, but you're still talking about Tommy John surgery with Javier and Garcia. So you're still going to have them on pitch limits and on counts. So you're going to want to be careful with that as well. So I agree with you. I think I'm not too worried about Hunter Brown. I know this start looked as bad as the Cleveland start, but again, a lot of that stuff was expected batting average of 180. What are you going to do? But you have the opportunity right now with a Fromber and Hunter Brown and this offense and this bullpen. And if you get Yordan back, you have the opportunity to make a run. And I think you have to do everything you can to make a run, and adding another starting pitcher, even just to your point, to eat some innings between now and October, I think will serve this team really, really well.
Is there a player position that you would like the Astros to pursue at the deadline?
I know it's Dana Brown's been looking for like a unicorn, but a left-handed power bat that can play in the outfield. Honestly, I think you're going to need some center field help. The joke has been about the Astros medical prowess. Air quotes for that, for those that are listening.
That's very generous.
But Hunter Brown said today he thinks it won't be 3 weeks before we see Jake Meyers. Well, I don't believe that 3 weeks for a second. So I think you definitely need to find a bat in the outfield, preferably one that can play center field.
Yeah, it's medical staff, and some of it might just be a freak thing. Jake Meyers, you watched him and he was like, I was doing stuff before everything was fine. There was nothing. And then I'm literally jogging out there and all of a sudden something goes wrong, and a calf deal. That's weird, like a strain. It is hard to figure out, but at the same time, just as a general rule, after everything that's happened with the Astros, James, I don't get it. Like, okay, we've seen everything happen. Just wait till after the All-Star. You don't need Jake here for 6 games.
That's the thing.
Ugh.
I mean, and guess what? You didn't win them anyway, right? Like you still lost them, so it didn't really matter. Yeah, it's mind blowing. So, like, I don't blame the Astros medical staff for the Pena thing. It's apparently a small fracture, but after Kyle Tucker, they've lost all benefit of the doubt, and that's just how the world works. Like, they told us it was a bruise for Kyle Tucker for 2 months before he came back, and really, he broke his leg. Like, he broke his leg. There's no other. You can use all the words you want to, all the euphemisms for a broken bone. He broke his leg. So they don't get the benefit of the doubt. And I don't understand how they didn't look at this and say, at a minimum, you would go into the break with a 4-game lead. You would take that in April if I promised it to you then. You just would. And so I don't know why they need to rush him back unless they were feeling a little bit of maybe reading too much Twitter. I don't know. But for something about them compelled them to make that choice when they really should have given him 2 solid weeks off to really see what was going on with his calf.
Actually, what really mattered the last few games wasn't the hitting. It was the pitching. The pitching just wasn't up to snuff. Hunter Brown wasn't his usual self. And that was what turned out to be the issue. Look at this, James. If the Astros do nothing but get Yordan and Arrighetti healthy, along with Pena and Meyers, of course, should they be a championship favorite?
Yeah, I think so. I say that without hesitation. I say that because now what I'm assuming is part of why we didn't see normal Yordan in May was because he was hurt, right? So if we can get something back to Yordan that we're used to seeing, and we get this Pena back that we saw this year and strengthen the pitching, absolutely. I think they're definitely favored to win the division. I think that they would definitely be in the ALCS, and I can see them beating the Tigers. A little bit of revenge. They lost to the Tigers on the day my dog Vader died. So I'm looking for payback twice. So let's get this thing done. So get a little morose on you, but yeah, no, I do. I think that you're asking about us. Can we get the best slugger in baseball back at the trade deadline? Yeah, we would definitely be a championship contender. I'm not sure we're not one now with the way they've been piecing things together. I think they just ran out of gas a little bit, and I think that this break will do wonders for them.
I rarely get podcast envy, but Jeff Luhnow's interview on the Clutch City Territory podcast was outstanding. Got to give Chandler Rome and Tyler Stafford some love, because great questions by those guys and some fascinating answers from Luhnow. As someone who was not a fan of the Roberto Osuna trade, James, I was transfixed by Luhnow's description of the work that went into the Osuna deal behind the scenes, and Luhnow's admission that if he had it to do over again, he would not, saying he didn't quite factor in the impact on female Astros fans. But, I will say, James, if you listen to that interview, there were conversations with the communications, public relations department. There were all these communications behind the scenes in the front office about Osuna's situation. They did their homework behind the scenes, talking to people about Osuna, what kind of person he was. And I don't know if it mitigates it for me. I'm just on that particular subject. I'm just not about immediately forgiving stuff like that. But I just thought it was extremely interesting. And I think Jeff, he's a detailed guy. We forget that sometimes. And he was going over most of the details. It was just like this one little thing of like, hey, this impacts Astros fans as well.
Well, if you know anything about Jeff Luhnow, like he had a lack of popularity amongst the other GMs in baseball, in part because he was such a detail guy and wasn't always the most personable fellow. And so it doesn't necessarily shock you that he might have overlooked this part of the Osuna deal. I'm with you. I didn't love the deal. Obviously, I rooted for him because he was an Astro, but would have loved somebody else. I don't think we should be ignoring or continuing to reward women beaters, frankly. And I think that sometimes things are bigger than sports, and that's one of them. I think the selfish thing too is I don't know that the fallout of the scandal is as bad if Osuna is not an Astro, because I firmly believe, and if you go back, so after the ALCS of 2019, Altuve hits the home run. Taubman is famously in front of who we know to be Allison Footer and a couple of other female reporters, talking about how much they're glad they got Osuna, ignoring the fact that he gave up the 2-run home run to get the game tied, ignoring that. Well, immediately after that, there already started to be hit pieces in Sports Illustrated and ESPN about the culture of the Astros. I am convinced that when this news broke about the trash cans and everything else, there was a mission on the heads of reporters to find any dirt on the Astros to somehow punish is a bad word, but to punish them for the way in which they were reacting to some of the female reporting staff. I will never not believe that. And it goes back to, if you don't have Osuna in the first place, maybe that doesn't happen. But yeah, I'm glad to see that Jeff Luhnow is able to, that's how we all learn and grow. And that's how you learn and grow, is to step back and evaluate decisions that you made. And yeah, I wasn't super happy with it at all. And of everything that's happened as an Astros fan in my 50 years on this planet, that was probably the thing I was the least proud of, was having Osuna on the team.
Another interesting revelation, the Astros nearly landed Bryce Harper in 2018. The deal was set to go, but Nationals ownership nixed it at the last second. But all the Astros would have given up, James, was Abraham Toro, Josh James, J.B. Bukauskas, Kent Emanuel, and somebody named Randy Caesar, who I have never heard of. And I try to follow the minors as much as possible. The Astros lost 4-1 to the Sox that year, James. If you remember, all of the 4 losses were by more than a run. Does Harper make that much of a difference?
Yes. First of all, if Harper's umpiring that game, it makes a big difference, or 2 of those games at least. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's easy to say, and as Astros fans, we have a lot of questions. I'm a Longhorn grad. If Colt doesn't get hurt, does that make all the difference in 2009? But no, I do think a talent like Bryce Harper in that lineup absolutely probably puts them over the Red Sox, if they hadn't been cheating, as we know they were cheating now. But anyway, yeah, no, I think they win the World Series with Bryce Harper in the lineup for sure, 100%.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if it was 2019, maybe, and that, when they go to Game 7. But I mean, it's a lot for him to make up over 2 runs in all 4 of those games, or 2 or more runs.
Yeah, but don't forget that those games were eyelashes away from not being 2 runs. The Bregman, that ball bounces in front of was it Bogart? Who was it that caught the ball? And then it kept rolling to I mean, I feel like having him in the lineup makes that approach to that lineup completely different.
The domino effect, you're saying?
Yeah, totally.
Will you watch the All-Star game from start to finish?
No, I won't. I probably won't watch much of it, mostly because I watch so much baseball that I'm also looking forward to a bit of the break between. Let's see, I'm traveling for my show, so I'm going to have about 4 or 5 days off. I'm going to fly to Oregon to see my grandkids and take them to see Superman. So that's what I'll be doing the night of the All-Star game, is I'll be watching Superman again. But no, I'll check in on it, but it just feels different than it did when I was a kid. And I think with when interleague play became a thing and it wasn't such a big deal to see other uniforms playing your team, I think it lost a lot of the interest for me. And so, no, I probably will check in on it. I'm glad the guys are going to get a rest. I'm glad that most of our players aren't going to be participating. And then I'll be ready to go Friday when the team is, but I'll take this time off myself. Are you going to watch? Are you?
I've found it almost impossible to watch in recent years. I almost feel like, and what's your hypothesis on this? Because I almost feel like the All-Star game is for kids, but the adults, just by the time you get that age, it doesn't matter. I don't know if it's the fact that things have changed, like in the world or in baseball. I just feel like it's something that, kids want or enjoy, and adults are like, yeah, I watch these guys the rest of the year. I don't need to spend my time watching the All-Star game.
That's interesting. I almost wish that they would kind of do more skill stuff, like the home run derby. Like in Korea, they do like a bunting competition, which is kind of neat. Like, I would almost rather see the human side of players come back out, but I don't want to see Josh Hader going in the ninth trying to close out a game against the National League and therefore make him maybe unavailable for Friday night. I don't know what the ratings are on it. But I know like no one watches the Pro Bowl. Maybe the All-Star game is the last relevant All-Star game of the major American sports, but I wish there was a way to acknowledge the players, have a little fun, but give them all like an actual day off. And maybe except the Mariners, they should like have to go work in a coal mine for 4 days or something.
Poor Mariners. Seattle's a good town. I mean, that's a nice town, but Mariners fans, maybe not so much. But yeah, one thing I want to remind everybody, one of my favorite moments in really any event that I've ever gone to see. It's 21 years ago today. The All-Star game was at Minute Maid Park. And I'm going to say Minute Maid Park because it was a Minute Maid Park at that point in time. It's one of my rules of like, okay, what was it then?
Right.
I loved it because, well, I'll get there in a second. But to start off with, during the Home Run Derby, I was standing outside of the ballpark watching people practically maul each other because I thought about, I want to try to catch a baseball because remember Berkman was hitting them over the train tracks into the street. And then I realized, oh no, I'm a little guy. I would get killed in this scrum. So I stayed out of that. So that was kind of interesting to watch. But the moment, and the reason I'm saying it was a fantastic moment, Muhammad Ali gets introduced for the opening pitch, and it was just electric. I mean, to see Muhammad Ali walk out there and you see him shadow boxing with some of the kids and some of the, like Jeter, Berkman was out there with him as well. And of course, all the players gathered around Muhammad Ali. I mean, when he's anywhere, it's incredible. And to see him in Houston. And of course, there's a whole Houston history with him. He had some of his big fights here. And of course, the major moment that we've talked about on the show, because Mickey Herskowitz was on with us and telling the story of him being, at the military office when he declares that, I forget what the term was, but he's not going to go to war. He's not fighting anybody. He doesn't believe in it. So he took that position, and that was in Houston, Texas. So, I mean, it's just so much involved with that, but just a magical moment, James.
It was. And I think those are the kinds of things that are good for the sport. I just don't know that it's worth the actual game being played.
I can understand that as well. And, I think for the players, some of them that it still matters. It still means something to be out there on the field. And
there's also a lot of flawed stuff too going on too right now where, like, didn't some pitcher who's thrown like 5 starts, now he's backed into the All-Star game because everybody they wanted to pick was a Sunday starter today. There are certain things that are going into devaluing the game as well. Some of that is the issue, for me at least.
Yeah, Paredes has no business being in the game. He sucked this year. No. Paredes, congratulations to him for making the All-Star game. One of the things that you look at is a potential injury happening, but I'm going to tell you right now, James, it has not even close to the concern with the All-Star game that, for me, the World Baseball Classic has, which basically destroyed the careers of 3 Astros starting pitchers. And until Luis Garcia and Christian Javier can show me that they're back, it's basically both of those guys were in that World Baseball Classic along with Jose Urquidy. Urquidy's never been the same. 3 games after the World Baseball Classic, 3 games after the World Baseball Classic, Garcia still hasn't come back. I mean, it's taken him close to 3 years to try to make a comeback. And of course, Christian Javier was never the same after the World Baseball. His fastball did not jump the way it did before that. And this was all because basically 1 week after we typically end the season. So it was the first week of November, the longest a baseball season has ever taken place.
Yeah.
The World Baseball Classic happens there's no ramp up or anything. All of a sudden the guys have the shortest offseason in the history of the sport with no ramp up into a quote unquote World Series style play.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And my hope is, I like the concept of it, but they have to find a way to make it work better than the way it does. Because as Astros fans, we lost Altuve for however long because he got hit with a pitch in the World Baseball Classic. So they got to find a way to make it work. How are the Olympics going to work? Like, I don't know. I mean, are they talking about having it be major leaguers playing the Olympics? Are we going to send college kids and lose? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with that either.
He's at Ballpark Nation on X. Tell us about Ballpark Nation. Give us some insight there.
Yeah, so Ballpark Nation's a little bit different. If you're looking for something fun to do, it's a travel show on Amazon Prime. We're on Roku and a couple of others, but the main network is Amazon Prime, and it's basically a travel show where the center of it's going to ballparks. I compared diners, drive-ins, and dives without the fast food. But season 1 is up. We've got an Astros and Sugarland combo season out there, which is a episode which is a lot of fun. But essentially, we'll be on the road all over during baseball season. We're about done shooting season 2, and we'll hit the road in April again next year for season 3. So yeah, you can find us all over the place, including on Amazon Prime right now.
Thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, one last thing for our listeners and viewers before we go. A week from Sunday, Billy Wagner gets inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Oh my God, it's going to be fun to see that. And when we heard the news earlier this year, Bill Brown and Greg Lucas joined me on this show. You can find the full conversation on our Astros History YouTube playlist, along with loads more great content. But here's a taste of Brownie and Lucas on Cooperstown bound Billy Wagner.
He was ahead of his time, really, when you stop to think about it, in throwing pitches 100 miles an hour consistently. Nowadays, a lot of people do. But when he was throwing, I know there was one year where he was credited with 159 pitches of 100 or more miles an hour. And I think it was, I may be wrong on the exact figures, but I think the entire league had 56. And in the American League, it was even worse. There were only 26 pitches thrown of over 100 miles an hour. This was in 2003, I believe. Now, that's not only interesting for Billy, but it's interesting for what's happened in baseball over the last 20 years, because now everybody throws 100 miles an hour, it seems.
What do you remember about first seeing Billy the Kid? Billy, the actual kid.
Right. This is such a great, somebody should make a movie about this guy's life. It would be an incredible movie. You know, first round draft choice, Ferrum, Division III college, Virginia. I think he is the first guy to be a Hall of Fame inductee in Cooperstown who came from a Division III college. We were, of course, watching the results very carefully as he progressed through the minor leagues with the Astros and expecting him to arrive fairly quickly on the scene, but kept hearing reports, well, you know, he has a great fastball, but he doesn't have a third pitch. He doesn't have a changeup. And they had hoped he would be a starting pitcher, but the third pitch never really developed. And they had a need in the bullpen. So therefore, when he arrived, that was what he was. He was a late inning reliever. You're never sure how somebody's going to respond to the major leagues because it's the very highest level. But he responded extremely well, took over that closer's role, and became one of the best of all time. And he is such a nice guy, and I'm really happy for him.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.